Hey everybody, it's Tuesday.
And welcome to this week's edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And I'm telling him what to do behind the scenes.
Like I don't know how to do it. You run the computer.
This show would be a disaster if that was the case. With that though, we are, I was going to say back to our normal Tuesdays, but I guess we've been kind of doing Tuesdays through the show season and all of that. But the nice thing about this is we are now at the point of the season where, gosh, a lot of people have ice. Some places have even a lot of ice. And so that's exciting, for so long we're holding out through some tough weather and warm ups. So why was I going to say that? That's what it felt like. That was terrible. And some rain mixed in. So how is our ice now?
Yeah, our ice is looking pretty good. We're looking at 6 to 10 inches depending on where you go. We're going to get a little bit more snow. We're looking at 2 to 5 here, but that's not all so bad that, once you get into that 8 inches of ice range, as long as it's not slushy wet stuff, good for the snowmobiles, good for traction, so you're not falling on your butt all the time. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. We're planning on going camping this weekend.
Well, and where we are in Wisconsin, we're still finding that conditions are varying quite greatly. So I know that we had this really, really super cold spell just happen. And actually we were in Minnesota for that. So honestly, for the very most up-to-date ice conditions, don't come to me this week, because we were in Minnesota. But with that, like you said, we saw quite a bit of ice and even some people starting to pull hard houses out. So that is exciting to see.
Yeah, just be careful with your full-size vehicles. Don't pull those out there yet. And if you are planning on it, just make sure that you're checking ice before you do it. At this point, the majority of the ice, some of the ice will be fine for ATV traffic and whatnot. So pulling those shacks out with that, but yeah, should be good.
And I guess along with that ice report, we always give kind of our fishing report. And so we do only have a little bit of fishing kind of compared to what we normally try to do. But we had a really fun day and we actually were able to hit up some friends that were out in that area. And so that was really fun. The spot that we plopped down to, what day was that? Friday.
Yeah, we went fishing with John Ellingsworth on Friday and he just kind of was hanging out. So he asked if we wanted to join him. So we went and met him out there and hung out with him and his kid and got some fish.
But there was a whole bunch of wind that came through. It was right before that bitter cold spell. And there was actually quite a bit of snow that came down while we were out there. And so that was pretty interesting. We found that where we plopped down, we at first had tons and tons and tons of baby perch. But I kind of felt like that meant that we were in a place where fish were going to come and eat because that was a good bite for something. And sure enough, as the day went on, and as the storm went on, the conditions did change. And Josh thought that he had a fabulous walleye, and it turned out to be actually a pretty nice pike. So not quite the walleye that we hoped for, but that was always a fun moment in the shack. And we saw schools of crappie go through. So on our Vexilars, we're marking, nothing, and just big masses of fish would come through. And I wish that I had my AquaView down at that moment to see that. But from what I could see on my Vexilar, it was amazing. And from the fish that we pulled up, it was actually really great. So looking forward to being out this weekend. And I'm hoping that fish are just as active as what we saw there.
Yeah. We got some people checking in. Jay Dell, hey, how's it going? Ray, Jay Elmquist, how's it going? Ryan, giving us a report from Winnebago or Poigan. 9 inches, had the ATV and snowmobile out. Sounds good. That's good to hear.
Jeff, oh no, just to report, this is out of Winnebago. Sunk Dive Ice Rescue is $450 per hour. Been there. That's terrible. So if you do drop a vehicle through the ice, certainly there are like environmental fines that go with that, I think. But $450 an hour to get your vehicle out is...
I'll walk for a little bit longer if I need to.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Brandon, Robin. Love you too, Robin. Todd, how's it going?
So while we're talking about some of our favorite people, let's bring in our guest because also one of our favorite people. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey guys,
hey,
thanks for having me.
Oh,
it's going well. How are things in Wisconsin?
They're frozen, which is great, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
not
getting to be
quite
that
as
time,
chilly
huh?
as up in Minnesota, but it's good here.
Well, as you guys know, I'm in the metro, and we've been patiently waiting for walkable ice, and we finally had it about 3 weeks ago, and we literally went from walkable ice to driving full-size vehicles out almost. So, I mean, we're getting to that point. I mean, I have a four-wheeler that, and I'm probably not even going to have to use it this year, which I'm kind of excited about because I just drive to the spot. It's a lot easier, a lot easier. So.
Yeah.
Well, and we actually have been finding some pretty good landings, so I don't want to jinx that, and it's early in the season, but as far as crossing that bridge between land and ice, that should be pretty smooth sailing so far.
Oh yeah. Most of the landings right now, I mean, they're pretty smooth. Not a lot of I should say some people are kind of testing it a little bit, driving out a little bit, and then they kind of like, oh, I better not, and they'll put it in park or it just gets crazy. I know some of the lakes, probably around you too. People start to park right next to each other, and they're all full-size trucks, and they're on the ice, and every year it happens. I mean, we have Prior Lake, which is a big metro lake, and it happens every single year. I mean, every year, almost on cue. They can't wait. It's 12 inches of ice. They can't wait for that extra 2 or 3 inches. They got to test it, and we get 4 or 5 vehicles in the water. And you guys were just talking about your little report there about how much it costs to take a vehicle out of the lake, and it's not cheap.
No. And that's only to get it out, not what you have to do with the vehicle after.
Right.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty much a total loss. I mean, and how do you explain that one to the insurance company? Yeah, I was driving on a frozen lake. Most of those people are located down south. They can't grasp that concept, So they think we're idiots when we're walking out on, 15 inches. It's like, that's stronger than concrete, Yeah, so... Yeah,
that's so funny.
But other than that, the metro fishing's actually been really good. Me personally, even my clients said I've actually had 3 guide trips so far, and they were all successful. Basically, I'm fishing panfish right now. Yeah, just because a lot of people that I take out are from out of town, and it's their first time, and they just want to catch fish. They want to have fun. It's a whole experience, and I've been finding fish, bluegills, crappies, in anywhere from 11 to 15 feet. And most of the time, the bluegills have been, towards the bottom, really tight to the bottom, and the crappies are roaming right now. They're roaming in schools, and you'll be getting bluegill after bluegill, or pumpkin seed and bluegill, pumpkin seed, bluegill, and then all of a sudden your fish finder or your flasher will light up like a Christmas tree. Or they come in and they bite hard for probably a couple minutes, and then they leave. And then they come back and they do the same thing over and over and over again, pretty much till about 9 o'clock at night. So, yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't gotten much into the whole night bite, which is funny because we have a Thursday show called The Night Bite, but I've just never done that well. So, I mean, do you have tips for fishing, from that day or into the evening or even into night?
Oh, sure. Well, most of the time, the crappies either bite about a half an hour before dark, and they'll bite into the night. Usually the best bite is probably 15 to 20 minutes. They'll really turn on. And what I like to do is if the fish are really aggressive, I'll use bigger crappie minnows. They want that big target, especially the bigger fish. They want that good, big, thick meal. And going into the night, so fishing earlier, you start picking up crappies about a half an hour before, sundown. I'll go from a smaller crappie minnow, or maybe a spoon tipped with like waxies or spikes or Euro larva, as most people call. They're called Euro larva, but a lot, the term is, or the whatever you call it, nickname, I guess you could say, is spikes. That's what most people know them. as and you'll load up the treble hook with the spikes and start jigging aggressively, and those crappies will start congregating because they know there's food there, they know there's action there, and then I'll switch to maybe a spoon with a bigger crappie minnow. Give them as it gets later in the night, give them a large target to hit. So
I think that's a really great tip, because one of the things that we keep hearing, let's say in the world of fishing, which is a really big place, but like winter comes and you downsize, and tungstens and all of these shapes and sizes are getting as small as they possibly can. And I think one of the things that people forget is that there is a certain bait size that fish just like to eat.
Yes. And crappies, and I'm sure you guys know that they can be really picky. I mean, one night they want the really big crappie minnows. The next night they want the smallest crappie minnows. But I got to be honest with you. I hear that too. What size tungsten do you recommend? Or I'm on a really fish aren't aggressive. What do I use? And honestly, the best lure that I've ever used for crappies and for big crappies is a small spoon. I use Snyder's Lures. I'm sure you guys have probably heard of them. They have a jig called the Moon Fry jig, and it's I don't know, it's probably a half inch, tall. But that profile, I mean, there's just something about that profile, and I've had luck, with other spoons as well, and during the day, I do really well with tungsten, maybe like a 4 millimeter or 3 millimeter. If I go down to 3 millimeter, it usually, because I'm fishing gills and crappie. But as the day progresses, and they want that larger meal, I'll switch to a spoon. And depending upon their mood, you kind of jig to what the mood of the fish is. And I'm sure you guys know, and you've probably seen this 100 times on your Vexlar, right? And you're jigging, and all of a sudden you have a crappie just shoot up, right? And then nothing. And you're like, why is that? Why is that? Why aren't they interested? Well, crappies are actually notorious upbiters. They love to see their prey above. They're ambush predators. So, if you they'll be mouthy if you stick it right in front of them. But a lot of times it's just kind of like a tap, or, they'll shoot up, but it's just not high enough for them. If that happens, go a little bit higher. Because that just maybe 6 inches from where you're at might be that determining height off the bottom that they're going to feed at. And I use a Panoptics and a camera. Okay, so I have an AquaView Revolution, the 5.0, and I love watching crappie action on that camera. And the nice thing is, with that camera, it fits in my pocket. So if I'm hole hopping, because there's nothing worse when you're hole hopping than, you mark a bunch of fish and you think they're crappies or you think they're bluegill, and you send that camera down there and you're like, what is that?
Yeah, you find out that they're bullheads.
What's up with all these perch, or these tiny little perch, or, whatever. But, a camera never lies, but a camera also tells you the action of the fish. Watch those fish. See what they're doing. See why there's a fish over here that's biting, and there's a fish over here that's not. Why are they're both there, and they're both attracted to it. Why isn't this one? And a lot of times with you can tell with the camera, and a lot of times too, I'll have a tungsten, like a 3 millimeter, the tiniest tungsten I think they make right now, and I'll have like a chigger fry on, and I'll be hitting them, like a half hour before dark, or if it's a day bite on a certain lake, I'll be hitting them all day on that. But there's that kind of magic time, like a half an hour before sundown, where it's all of a sudden they'll just stop biting that. And I figured out with my camera that they were kind of turned off. They'd come up to it, it just wasn't big enough. They wanted something big, something of substance. So I know I'm rambling, and I hope you're getting all
this. Soaking this in, and here is why. So there is every year, I think it's just January actually, but it's on the Fish Donkey, the Ice Queen tournament, and it's a women's only for crappies and for walleyes. And like walleyes are great and everything, but like I just always try to get in the top 20 of the crappie division.
Huh?
And 3 or 4 years ago when it was a new tournament that was easy, but then this year there's literally thousands of women signed up. And so,
Wow.
we only have a certain number of lakes near us that hold great fish. But
Sure.
the one that we're going to go camping at this weekend, we think that we have a pretty good shot at things. And it just is funny because almost exactly the situations that you're describing, when you have that slightly clearer water and then getting towards dusk and that those fish turn off, but it's something else. And we're sitting here on the edge of our seats, so inspired. And I love hearing these things because these are some of the things that honestly I'm going to go and I'm going to do that this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's great to hear that women are getting into this sport because it's such a great sport. And I know a lot of the ladies, including my wife, stressed out, don't have a channel to just relax and have fun. And ice fishing is the perfect sport because it doesn't cost a lot of money. You could get into it relatively easy. And now with social media, there's so much support right now that it's just a good thing to see. It's also great to see kids get into it. That's another good thing that I see. But yeah, with your crappie tournaments, or your tournaments in general, if you're going to a lake where you think, especially these fish donkey type tournaments where, you could be on any lake. And that's great because can you imagine 1,000 people just in a certain area, trying to catch, the biggest crappie? Yeah. Well, it's kind of nice that, you could do it on the lakes that you choose or by you or, and that it's fair game. Anybody can catch a nice crappie in any lake at any time. In fact, here's a little, I love crappie fishing myself. Crappie, people always ask me, you're a muskie guy. Why do you like fishing crappie? There's just something about that chase. There's something about when they come in and when they're biting and when they're aggressive. There's no other fish that hits like them, especially ice fishing. But with that tournament, kind of get out of your comfort zone. That's one big thing. Everybody gets into their comfort zone. They tend to use the same thing all the time. They use the same rod, the same setup. It's what you're comfortable with. But the more you get out of your comfort zone, here's an example. I remember the first time a friend of mine said, "Hey, start using spoons," and I was using the Acme Castmasters that he had given me, and I started catching really big fish. These schools would come in and let's say the average was 10, 11 inches. Well, all of a sudden I'm catching the 13s, the 14s, and the 15s, but before that, I was a jig fisherman. That's all I used. I used jigs and, whatever I caught, and I thought I was doing well, but that changed the game. So I guess if there's any advice I can give about, tournament fishing, especially tournament fishing, is get out of your comfort zone. If you're doing the same thing repetitive and getting the same results, it's time to change, try to get a little, and try different lures, try different baits, try different, presentations, and when you do that over time, trial and error, you prove to be successful because you're learning a lesson every time you go out, and I know you guys, you're in the industry too, and everybody seems to have the greatest advice, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but sometimes you get that advice and you go out and you try what they do, or you see what they do and you see that they're being successful and you're like, God, I'm going to try that. And you go out and it's just not the same. Well, a lot of times these guys and gals that are doing this type of fishing that they're talking about, they're either on a loaded lake that they've been fishing their whole life and they know that lake like the back of their hand, or B, they have done it so long that they've done it through trial and error that all of a sudden they're successful. They figure out a pattern, they figured out a way. So I guess that would be my biggest advice, going into that tournament and maybe, get out of your comfort zone, and it might surprise you. So.
Well, I'm already surprised because I feel like we must have already been fishing together because you're speaking to exactly how I fish. And I know that on your name here on the screen it says Captain Brian, but I'm pretty sure from here on out I'm going to call you Coach Brian.
That's
We
fine.
do we do have a few questions here. Some of them
Okay.
are a bit random, so we're going to jump around a little bit.
Yeah, we can.
And a question from Jeff here. So if you're still listening, Jeff, he's wondering, and I'm not sure if you know, but in Minnesota, how big of a hole can you make for spearing pike?
That
No
is
idea.
kind of out of my realm. I honestly, I don't want to kind of steer them the wrong way, but I would say this big.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Honest to God, I don't know. And I'm sorry. I wish I knew that answer, but I honest to God, I'm not a spear fisherman myself. I know a lot more people that are way more advanced than I am. So I guess I would say just go to the DNR website, the Minnesota DNR website, and see if they have any regulations. I've seen, I've walked on holes or close to holes that are, pretty big. I would probably say, well, I don't know, maybe 5 feet by 2 feet, but I would probably check with the DNR first. So definitely.
Also, 2 points of consideration. What kind of a shack are you going to be in? Because typically that's not something that people do out in the open. So make sure that you're taking into account, what your shack is. And the other thing is make sure that as you're going out, bring a branch or something to mark it, because until that hole refreezes, that can be super dangerous when you pull your stuff out. So as a first-time person going out there, hit up a local bait shop, because I gotta say, spearing is something that not even everyone can do in every state. And like you're saying, those regulation books can answer all of those questions. Robin here is talking all about night fishing crappies. We will all come visit you, Robin. Everybody in the comment section is gonna go out there and night fish crappies, and it's gonna be an awesome time, and we're all excited about that. Jonathan is saying Snyder's lures work wonders on the Bago system. Ooh, that's close to me. So that's awesome.
That's good. Good to hear.
Oh, you must have been talking about ladies fishing.
Robin says we get to the bigger fish. That's funny. And then Tanner is asking, we were talking about panfish and crappies. Do you have a good plastic for that, or are you a live bait person?
Actually, I'm both. Like I said, if I'm fishing during the day, I tend to lean more toward plastics, and if they're not aggressive, I'll maybe put a couple spikes or a waxy on there, for a little bit of taste and smell. But honestly, my favorite is panfish plastics, the chigger fry. I've caught more fish on that little plastic, and there's so many different colors and color schemes that will probably more than likely work for whatever body of water you're fishing. It's kind of been my go-to for I don't know, at least 10 years. So yeah, I would say the chigger fry. Yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite. I use it all the time, and
do you have a go-to color for that?
What's honestly, I like I kind of lean towards more like the white. White seems to be a really good color. Anything off white or like a glow. Anything with in fact, he came out with Wonder Bread, which is basically a solid white, and you've got the Wonder Bread colors, the reds, the blues, and the yellow, and that seems to be working really well, especially this year. Big bluegills, love it, and also big pumpkin seeds too. So yeah.
I'm gonna expand on that too a little bit, Brian. One of my favorites. Well, white is something that everybody should have in their tackle box as far as crappie baits go. I like the Extreme Plastics Wiggler. I'm also a huge fan of the Mud Bug by BY Baits. H2O Hammer has something called the Helios. It's like a almost like a dragon or a mayfly larva. Those guys are really good. And IGO Plastics, one of my favorite from them is, especially during the wintertime, is the Panty Crawler. And all of them have variations on the white with different glitters and stuff. and any of those, you just have to play around with the different shapes. And bug shapes are the most fun because, anything really can mimic a minnow because it's just a long, a lot of people use what's referred to as the carrots. It's just a triangle shaped piece of plastic to mimic a minnow. But the bugs are fun to play around with, and you will find a difference when you go through different, those different styles, that you'll get more bites on, something that has a bunch of legs versus something that only has like 2 legs. So just play around with it, but make sure, you have some of that white in your box.
And that's exactly it too. Color schemes, remember they say they see blue last in deeper water and darker water. So more of your blues, your purples, your darker colors deep, your lighter colors up in the water column, or in clear water. You want it to be as natural as possible in the clearer water. In like you said, and you hit it on the head. I mean, it's all kind of trial and error. What colors are working for you, and also too. I mean, I've had little wedges that have pulled a lot of fish out too, and some days you go there and you're just crushing them on the little wedge, and the next day they want something with legs, or they want something with the shorter tail, or they want something with a ball on the tail. I mean, and there's so many plastic companies out there now, and it seems like every year, there's a new plastic company that pops up, and it's kind of hard to kind of keep up with it. But I would, definitely use what you like, and just kind of, play around with them and find out what works for you. So,
and don't be afraid to migrate from big box stores and big names over to that stuff that you find on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, because the guys making it at home, no matter who it is, even if you get a couple plastics that have a dent or a bubble, those plastics perform far superior to what they can make in an industrial setting, because as bait makers, they can use softer plastics, and especially for wintertime, that's awesome. But the industrial side, they have to use harder plastic because they have to keep the plastic warm for so much longer to be able to shoot so many baits. Just check out all those homemade bait guys out, because whatever you use from them, it's gonna make your success with plastics a lot more, and you'll gain more confidence, and the more confidence you have, the more you can start to explore that whole world of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you're right. I mean, mass merchandisers, the big companies, not to knock them or anything, because they got to a certain point by hard work. But a lot of times, it comes down to the bottom line with those companies, and they might be using the cheaper plastic, while your guy that's making them in the basement, or your gal that's making them, with her kids or with herself or with a group or whatever, are using a little bit more, quality, products and things like that to give you a better product. So, and that, it's always good to buy from the small company, keep them going. They all have dreams. We all have dreams. So, it's always good.
Jeff was asking about if anybody uses green and gold. Jeff, you sound like you might be from Wisconsin and maybe a Packer fan. So maybe or maybe not. But we also have a lot of comments here. I'm coming back to that one.
Okay.
Sorry. Because we're getting a lot of comments, and we were talking about upsizing from those plastics. So when we do that, we were talking about spoons, we were talking about jigging wraps, and Buddy has asked here kind of a few different times, what are you using for that? Or are there colors, or what do you go to for like a spoon or a jigging wrap?
Okay, so I've been using, and I've talked about them before, just about 10 minutes ago, Snyder's Lures. Okay, they have a few that I really like. They have the Moon Fry, which is, they have, I think it's 12 different colors and patterns. And also they have what's called a Little Rascal Flash, a UV color, that's always good. But the way I kind of do it is I use the hotter colors like the pinks, the reds, more in stained kind of brackish water. It seems to stand out just a little bit better than your other colors do. Something with gold in it, something like a UV moonfry, even the Wonder Bread. Give something with a little different pattern, a little different look that these fish, might be passing somebody else's lure to come and take yours. So, I mean, spoons, there's a lot and again, there's a lot of different companies that make spoons. For me personally, I highly recommend Snyder's. I've used them for a long time. And they are they're from Dodge Center, Minnesota. They're as small can be. I mean, they work 16-hour days out of their garage. It's crazy. But like we said before, the quality, they can use more quality. Yeah, you pay a little bit more, but you've got something that's proven to catch fish. So I would say, the way I pick my spoon is usually by the mood of the fish. I do really well on white, pink, white, red, because some of the water around here is kind of it's a little dark. Some of the lakes are really clear because of zebra mussels, but we still have a lot of lakes that have kind of stained water a little bit, little greenish water. I tend to use something that stands out a little bit, something a little different. So I hope that answers this question. So
yeah, I'm sure. You can go back to where you were, the other question. Scroll back up. Okay,
Yes,
hero
ma'am.
fishing. Well, it just flowed with the conversation. I had to hit it. Hero fishing is asking if you prefer early or late ice for crappies. I don't know if I could choose that.
I prefer year round. Honestly, I target them from early ice to late ice. I target them right before ice. Because a lot of times if you're scouting new lakes for crappie, those crappies aren't going to move very far from where they were in the fall, okay, or the late fall. They're going to be in the kind of the same area. So, but if I was to choose, I would say late ice. The bite goes on, as the days get longer. The sun comes out. They seem to be more suspended, more active. I like chasing them in March myself. It's a little bit warmer. We can be out there with our nice, sweatshirts and light gear and have a really fun day. But yeah, I would say I prefer, and I've caught a lot of my bigger fish later in the season too. So I would say I'd prefer late ice.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorites too. Is as long as that ice holds up and that sun is high, they start pushing into their pre-spawn little holes, or getting up into those edges of where they're going to be spawning, and they're ready to eat. So especially those nice days where you get the snow running off the banks and it's going in under the ice, and you get a little bit of warm water going through there, or there's a little warm water coming across the ice down into your ice holes and stuff. Man, those can be some really nice days.
Oh yeah. And that's when you want to hole hop, because those fish are going to be moving. They're going to be roaming for, following their bait or following around their food. And you want to drill a lot of holes. So I know some of that, it can be really frustrating, because you'll have a really nice bite in one hole and, well, where'd they go? All right, I'll go over here, get a really nice bite. Well, where'd they go? They're gone. But yeah, late ice is fun. I mean, crappies in general are fun. I love fishing for them.
So that's actually, yeah, Robin, go early, go late, go prepared, go striker. But with that late season, and sometimes that ice thins out, or sometimes you're moving around a lot for the bite. There's a lot of people that get so used to, setting up a shack and I'm bringing all their things. So do you have any suggestions for helping people scale down or be more mobile?
Okay, I wish I could show you right now, but I have what's called a Strikemaster Shuttle. Okay, and what that is, it's a really small, compact sled that you have a lot of areas to carry different things in there. And what I've done is I've actually modified it so that I can carry I carry a light. In fact, let me grab it right here.
Oh, I always love when people get show and tell stuff.
All right, so I use this early and late ice. This is called the Nero. It's from HT. Okay. Right now, I've got the handle out of it, but it comes with a handle, and you know, I use my 18-volt brushless on it. So what I do is I mount this to the side, right? So I'm not carrying that. And then I use Panoptics. So I have the wand that you stick into the water, right? The handle. So what I did is I built a mount for that on the other side. Okay. And I did it really cheaply. I went up to, I think it was Fleet Farm or Home Depot, and I found some broom, you know, how you stick the broom in. Yeah. And they work perfect. They're made out of a spring and stuff like that. So, and that's relatively light. It's not going to fall off the sled. And what I do is I actually keep my flasher, my unit inside the sled, and I just pull it around, and everything I need is right there. Okay. And I'll use that early ice, just because it's light and you want to be able to move. You got to move a lot. And I'll use it late ice, you know, March, late February, early March, into you know, ice off, just because it's light, you're mobile, you can hole hop with it. I really only like to use a house in January, like mid to late January. In fact, you know, with the striker suit, I mean, I was out, what day was that? I was out, I think it was 5 above. I was in my climate suit, and everybody else was in a house. I was the only one that was hole hopping. So, but I mean, you know, and it's all kind of what you want to, you know, to have with you. I know there's certain people that like to have a lot of stuff with. You know, I've got a buddy like that. There's always one, right? Right, Josh? But, you know, but if you're by yourself or you're fishing with other people that fish like you, I would try to figure out a way to, like, maybe get an otter sled or a Chappelle sled and kind of modify it a little bit. My friend Trung, he has a really nice setup on his sled, and it works perfectly for him, and he uses it all year round, you know, and everything you need is right there. You don't have to drag a 70-pound sled around with a house and, 20-pound propane tank with the, big buddy heater, and you don't have to do that, but and that's something you do with, trial and error. There's one good thing that Thorn Brother, and I'm going to say this, but Thorn Brothers, excellent tackle shop, right? They have a sled modification. They have a show, it's one of the first shows of the year, and they have people bring their sleds in, their flip overs, and they do all these they modify them and stuff, and you get a lot of good ideas from that. And that's kind of how I got the shuttle idea. And I know there's other people that run the shuttles as well. They're hard to find. They don't make them anymore. But my advice would to be is, if you find one, definitely buy one, because they're definitely worth the money. So.
Well, and that really actually reminds me, just recently I'm starting to see on social media that people are, we've been seeing people mod their sleds for a while and like putting them on the skis to make the Smitty sled and all of that. And that's great. And that's cool. But I think that there's a lot more modding to be had. And I think it would be really cool even to, have a spot to mount, my Vexlar, just drop the transducer in, throw the auger in the sled, move right on. So actually, gosh, that sounds like a lot of fun. A whole bunch of ways to be more mobile.
Well, and there's also a Trick Your Trap group on Facebook, and there's a Trick Your Hub group too. So a shout out to those two Facebook groups. If you're not part of those and you are one of those do-it-yourself kind of guys, or you're kind of a tinkerer like me, like, those are really fun pages to watch, because it's a bunch of folks like getting together, using each other's brain power to like develop new ways to like make things more fun, make things easier. Sometimes they just do it because they can. You know,
Yeah.
I saw somebody, they made a floor for their monster hub like ours. And so I clicked on the notification to go read it, and his floor weighs 400 pounds. But you know, the purpose of it was to make it a permanent, like almost like a permanent shack for like a 4 days, 7 days out on the ice, and then you know
Smart.
you haul it out with your stuff, and it looked really nice. It's fully insulated. It's all 2x4s, you know, and it folds all up flat. You know, when you pull it, it's all hinged and stuff, and so you know it's not necessarily the most practical thing, but he did it, and it's really cool. And I'm sure somebody will take it and be like, well, let's work on this. And that's the cool thing about those groups.
Was that post that you saw, was that black and he had green hole?
Yep.
Yeah. I thought that was so cool. I'm like, man, people are geniuses. You know, some people just think of stuff like that. I myself, I'm not that good, you know, but yeah, I saw that. He's like, yeah, I know it's heavy, but this is the way I did it. And I mean, it was really cool. And that's the thing too. We have so much downtime waiting for ice. I mean, it's always kind of fun to kind of tinker around, like you said, and think of different ways. How can I make life on the ice a little bit easier, a little bit more fun? And I know that the ice camping is getting huge now. People are buying hubs, you know, and I mean, you put a couple cots out there, a nice floor, bring your dogs, bring your cats, bring your birds, bring your whatever you got, because it's nice and warm in there, and you're camping and you're having fun, and you're doing it as a family, or, you know, as a husband and wife. I mean, how cool is that? It doesn't really cost anything. If you think about it, it's a lot cheaper than staying in a hotel. So why not add to the winter fun by doing something like that? And I think you're right, Josh. This is where modifications come in handy. And you know, you belong to groups like that on Facebook or on Instagram, and you get all these ideas. And who knows, maybe you come up with the next idea that we'll all have in our houses. I mean, who knows? You know?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And you know, there's lots of great stuff coming out just by companies to make your life in the hub a little easier. Clam has those pucks that you put on your hub. The hub, you take the metal hub covers off your hubs and you replace them with these plastic pucks, and they're modular, so you can pull half of it out and mount it, and then you can mount stuff to each of your hub points.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
so things off the floor.
And they have some accessories for them, but they also just sell the pucks, so you could put your own stuff up. You know, you could mount a ram mount onto one of them and use it to hold your Aquaview. You know, you could do all kinds of stuff with them. And you know, there was a lady on YouTube that I actually contacted because I saw her video about making a part for our Otter hub that we could use a wood stove. And normally you would have to modify the hub in some way. Well, this lady made a window that was out of fire resistant material that is a part for the stovepipe to go out. So then I don't have to modify the hub. It just attaches to the window with the Velcro. Yeah. And then when I don't need it, then I take it out, put the window back in.
Oh, perfect.
You know, and she was nice enough to make me one for, I think I paid like $50 for it.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And it's cool that there's so many cool things like that out there, and you just have to look.
Oh, definitely. There's one thing I think of, though, you know, being a guide and being a captain, my number one priority is safety for my customers. So I'm going to say it. Make sure you bring a carbon monoxide detector with.
Yep.
Okay. You can buy them anywhere. You can buy them at Home Depot, wherever, you know, your hardware store, but make sure you have one that's battery operated. Keep the batteries up if you're going to do that, because, you know, you never know. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry. And something as simple as that, you know, a $20 piece of plastic could save your life. You know, I mean, we want you to wake up. If you got that rattle reel going on, it doesn't do any good if you don't wake up, right? So, you know, it could be that big walleye and not that northern, you know? So,
Well, and to kind of expand on that, the carbon monoxide detectors, they do come with also a smoke detector feature, and they're the pretty much the same price. So make sure you have one that does both, because it may not be carbon monoxide, it may be something started on fire and you don't know it.
Yeah.
So it's just a good way to keep that and keep it at head level. Wherever you're going to be sleeping, keep it on a table or keep it in the pocket next to your head. Because that's where that stuff is going to settle, and that's where you're breathing your air. So it doesn't do you any good to have it up in the netting in the top of the tent. So you make sure you have it down by where you're sleeping.
Exactly. It's heavier than air, so it settles on the floor. So yeah. But
what else we got?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was kind of just sitting back and reading some of the comments because there's a lot of great fish talk. So for everyone who is doing that, then we really appreciate that. A few more suggestions on different flutter spoons and stuff for people who are looking for all those different colors and shapes of things to fish with. There was a question farther up. Somebody said, it was way farther than that, I can't remember, how often we do this because you were building rods. There you are. How often do you guys do this? I'm building rods, and it's good to watch while I build. So we actually do try to meet every single Tuesday at 7 p.m. Go live. And in this case, we're here with Captain Brian, and it's been awesome. But we do actually have, a different guest every week. And so we tend to talk all different species and techniques and all of those different things. And best of all, we get to chat with you guys and answer your questions along the way. So
also, Dilly, if you check out our page, Crappie Junction, we also do one on Thursday night at the same time. So normally at the same time around 7 o'clock. So we do 2 a week and that has all kinds of guests on it as well. So
that's absolutely true. And Brian, you have a whole bunch of adventures going on. And so for the people who are looking to follow you as well, how can people do that?
Well, you can find me at Muskies and More Guide Service on Facebook and Instagram. I actually on Facebook, I think I'm Brian Koshenina's Muskies and More Guide Service. They won't let me change it for some reason, but yeah, you can find me there, or you can go to my website, muskiesandmore.com, or you can find me every Tuesday night with Crappie Junction from now on.
Yeah.
No. But you can also catch me at Fishing Booker. If you'd like to book a trip with me, I run out of the Twin Cities metro area, but I also do go outstate. I'll go to Mille Lacs. In fact, I do a few trips up to Superior in the summer as well. So we go for those lake trout and salmon and the big walleyes that come in. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And today's been a lot of fun. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you guys. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And to the people at home, you guys help make it a lot of fun. So thank you guys for being here as well. And otherwise, we're looking forward to next week's edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Night, everybody.